Hello, 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 folks. Welcome back to Holding Space. Melinda Zapone, if you're on Substack, and welcome back if you're coming from Spotify through Enya, Everyone Needs You Always, or if you're coming from YouTube. We're talking about a really important topic. We're always talking about a really important topic when we think about being on a healing journey and the phases of healing and creating a toolbox. Um, I'm calling this today Getting Punched Awake. Not everything needs to be talked through, and how we all can get metaphorically punched in the face with relational disharmony, and how looking in the mirror at a bruised face is hard, but it tells you what's hurting, not who hurt you. And in this is truth. So let's start with relational disharmony. Sometimes relational disharmony doesn't arrive as a misunderstanding to be repaired. It arrives like a punch in the face. Sometimes it's dramatic only to an audience of one, you. The person on the other end, the partner, friend, sibling, parent, child, or boss would likely refuse that framing altogether, denying both the force and the impact. Perhaps in some objective reality, the relational punch isn't dramatic or cruel at all once we strip away subjectivity and story. And still, the moment of contact can be so jarring it steals your breath and it scrambles your certainty. To you, it's the kind of punch that leaves you standing there stunned, realizing something just became unmistakably clear. You were in harm's way and now you've been hit. When we rush past that moment, when we speed towards explanation, storyline, or verbal repair to escape the discomfort, we miss a quieter approach. We skip the steps that lead to clarity without conversation, where the only dialogue required is with your own nervous system. In these moments, talking isn't soothing, processing feels premature, and repair may not be the point yet. The punch becomes a mirror, hard to look into, impossible to ignore. It reveals not only how you get hurt, but what you've been tolerating, what you've been explaining away, and what your nervous system has been signaling long before words could organize it. The uncomfortable truth is often this: you've been moving in a way that leaves you vulnerable to harm. You can focus on the other person, or you can turn towards yourself. Most of the time, focusing on others leads to explanations that circle endlessly and burn us out. You could not make someone understand themselves, and your outside view will never be precise enough to do it for them. At best, it creates a fleeting sense of connection, an apparent breakthrough that ultimately re injures parts of us already shaped by fears of abandonment, neglect, and betrayal from long ago. So let's talk about the punch, the mirror, and the truth. Recently, I placed myself in front of a punch I should have seen coming. One that has happened before and from the very same person. What surprised me wasn't the punch itself, but what followed. Something new confronted me, and I believe it has everything to do with my commitment to inner work, the holding space subscription community, and the trust I've placed in the toolbox approach and the phases of healing to organize thousands of healing journeys. This time, my mind told a different story. Instead of, you hurt me again, it said, I need to look at this injury and see it clearly. I didn't need mental chatter or a conversation with the other person. That clarity revealed something important about why we get hurt and why so often fail to learn our part in it. It's not about the moment you get punched, it's about all the moments beforehand, the ones where we participated in repression, suppression, and dissociation from our actual experience in order to preserve a connection that wasn't truly there. We do this constantly. It's conditioned by our families, passed down generationally, reinforced by movies, TV shows, and even stand up comedy. Humans make mistakes about the relationship they believe they're in because of subconscious needs to be rescued, helped, supported, accepted, held, cherished, or exclusively valued. I see this in myself. I see it every day in my therapy sessions. Someone will say, he's become so depressed. I want us to share goals and motivate each other, but he's so tired all the time. The other day, he actually said, leave me alone. They want a goal sharing relationship, but the punch, the leave me alone, is the actual relationship they're in, and they can't admit it. How does this happen? No one taught us how to identify our relational needs openly through a steady practice of meeting them within ourselves so that we can show others clearly how to meet us and then assess whether they can learn, grow, or whether the relationship is simply a nosedive we must walk away from. Must Most of us carry attachment injuries, anxious, avoidant, or vacillating between the two. We don't spend enough time securely with ourselves to understand the needs emerging from those wounds. So we're shocked when we think, I'm so secure at work, or I have no problems with my closest friends. How is it how unfair it is that this relationship feels so unstable? But here's the truth, here's the truth. The punch is always stored in your nervous system waiting to be felt. The mirror is always the person or situation that reflects it back to you. The truth is revealed only when you allow yourself to see it in a conversation of one with yourself. For me, loneliness stretches deep into my childhood. I grew out of boundary violations that I believed were proof of brokenness I created. I learned that if I hid this part of myself, I could fit into a storyline my family benefited from, or so I thought. What seeped into my relational style was overgiving, self sacrifice, endlessly understanding other people's narratives, and becoming a safe, non threatening presence. I hid my real experience from myself, and relating became an act of hiding inside helpfulness. The cracks showed up in ways that looked treatable: an eating disorder, academic failure, near death accidents. I became so skilled at recognizing hidden pain that a survival skill turned into a boundaryless attunement to other people's suffering. I carry that into relationships now. I want that sensitivity to be special. I want it to be valued. I want it to ensure I won't be told, you don't belong here unless you change, like I believed in my family of origin. So sometimes I'm drawn into imbalance instead of balance. If there's unhealed pain in a person, a relationship, a company, or a system, I feel pulled towards it. The mirror isn't that someone did this to me. The mirror is my trauma imprint. Learning to take the punch when it happens again is where my clarity lives. Do I unconsciously operate as a pain seer and want that to be my unique value? Yes. When I'm not grounded in safety, I get punched by disharmony far more often, especially outside of the therapist chair, when I'm trying to be attracted to unresolved wounds instead of secure connection. The truth arrived when I realized this: you got punched because you believed you only had one special value, and that situation didn't see it, didn't care, or rejected it. However, the truth is, you must know your value through the punches. You get back up and train differently. You relate from your value, not for it. Now, dear readers, dear listeners, watchers, this isn't about me. You're consuming this to learn about yourself. We all want the formula that stops us from getting hurt by relational disharmony. So let's break it down. The punch. This pain has been with you for a long time. Get honest with yourself about the fear underneath it: abandonment, being silenced, neglect, betrayal, boundary violation, rejection. The mirror. The punch means you did impact someone and they acted on that truth. Don't rationalize it away. Don't defend it yet. Tell yourself, they wanted to hurt me because I hurt them. Then brainstorm honestly. I was trying to be valued instead of listening to their values. I was unnecessarily harsh. I was vague and talked around my feelings. Now come to the truth. I want this, fill in the blank, but instead I act like this, fill in the blank, and I need to fill in the blank. Now let's map this to the toolbox approach and the phases of healing. For those of you already familiar with the toolbox approach and the phases of healing, you may recognize how this actually models the entire arc of the toolbox approach. Here's how they map cleanly. Phase 1, narrative healing, making meaning without self-attack. Where it appears in this: naming the punch before reacting to it, shifting the internal story from "you hurt me again" to "I need to see this injury clearly." Identifying long-standing themes, loneliness, value, enoughness, belonging, bringing conscious language to unconscious attachment needs. Toolbox move being used. This is witnessing the story without collapsing into it. In narrative healing, the work is not to fix the injury, but to name the story precisely enough so that the nervous system can stop fighting reality. Here we are differentiating event versus pattern, locating the pain in time. This pain has been here a long time. Separating identity from injury. This isn't who I am, it's what I learned. Now, phase 2 is reprocessing healing, working with the body, not just insight. Where it appears in this reading, viewing, listening today, naming repression, suppression, and dissociation explicitly, identifying trauma imprints and nervous system stored expectations, acknowledging attraction to imbalance, unfinished business, and wounded systems, allowing grief, loneliness, and shame to surface without bypass. The toolbox move being used here is letting the body complete what it couldn't before. Reprocessing healing shows up when you recognize the punch was already in the body. Stop arguing with the mirror. Allow the truth to land without justification or defense. The mirror aligns with reprocessing healing because you are reprocessing how something in you participated and moving beyond what happened from a triggered state. Additionally, you are intentionally reprocessing the following. This reaction makes sense given my history. I can tolerate seeing this without collapsing. This is where accountability without shame lives. Reprocessing healing question embedded in this, you could ask yourself, what did my nervous system learn long ago that is still running this moment? Now, phase 3, relational healing, choosing differently, not perfectly. Relate from your value, not for it. Recognizing when attraction is driven by trauma imprint versus safety. Naming boundaries as clarity, not punishment. Retraining how value is expressed, not negotiated for. The toolbox move being used here is practicing truth and connection. Relational healing is not about avoiding punches, it's about no longer organizing your life around them. The truth is the relational healing phase in action. Owning wants directly, aligning actions with needs, choosing relationships that meet you where you are. What we are working on in this phase and in this reading is relational repatterning. Relational healing question here, who can meet me when I'm honest and who cannot? And why this matters clinically for me as a therapist and conceptually for all of you. The punch, mirror, truth mindset teaches something essential about the toolbox approach. Healing is not avoiding harm. It's recognizing when harm no longer defines how we organize our worth. Defines, excuse me. We aren't learning how to avoid punches through our healing work. You're learning how to feel them sooner, understand them more honestly, stop building relationships around enduring them. Now, the wrap up here that I have for y'all. On your healing journey, it is important to prioritize the containment of the healing mindset. Things will throw you off course, something will happen, and you will analyze it and all the ways it made things harder for you, and the narrative will be a lie. I know this is annoying, but what the mind says is broken. It's half the information. It's dysregulated feeling interpreted into fact. Here's some. My mother was a narcissist because she kept using marriage to fix everything and couldn't manage to pay attention to any of her kids. I have trust issues affecting me at work. My father left us and I had to start working young to help my mother, but no matter how much I earn now, I never learned to save. It's like survival mode is still there and I can't believe my own money has my back because his absence and fear is always there. My siblings are all normal. We all had different mothers, but the same father, and none of their mothers were as cold as mine. She hid it, and I never learned to validate it and share with my sisters. Now I can't feel close to anyone. All these people have one thing in common. They are talking like this is 100% true in their lives now. That's the lie. There is survival mode you, triggered you, wounded attachment you, and then there is the lost self underneath. The punch is violent in many ways, and no one speaks about this, but healing can be too. The anger that comes up when you realize you haven't lived as yourself entirely is hard. Facing that much of your personality may have been a trauma response, a way of protecting from the relational pain of the past, comes from taking a lot of punches differently than before. Differently than before. Sometimes there are no such thing as red flags, and there are just flags. The flags say danger or threat is ahead. In relationships, your history is what turns these flags red, not the other person. Take that in. I have what could be defined as narcissists in my life and blocked from my life, but at the end of the day, letting them in too close, understanding them too deeply, has a lot to do with my history. And when the punch came, I wasn't in dodging distance to see the person is unhealed and not build for connection of the deep, safe, and authentic kind. It's a relief when you know it all starts with your healing. People become safer over time because you know the distance or closeness you need, not because you see them, but because you see yourself. Lastly, I want to remind you all of the 3-day therapy intensives starting this summer. You can find out more in the link. It'll give you a whole Patreon platform to explore, and you don't have to decide anything. Just absorb, investigate, and let me know when you're ready. Heal on, everyone.